Alright guys, so I'm going to get started on the trunk floor repairs on Steve's 55 here. There's a lot of work here to do. There's probably several days of work here to do. Pretty intricate stuff to do. There's going to be a lot of fab work, a lot of repair. So anyway, in case you did not catch the older videos from a couple of months ago where I went in and cut all this crap out, I'll get you caught up here. So this car, they had flipped the leaf springs to the inside, which causes all kinds of problems. So your spare tire well has to be removed because the gas tank has to be moved over more center to clear the leaf springs. So they had put in a paper thin piece of sheet metal, and all they did was went in and tack welded all the way around the outer edge of it. Should have been holes drilled in it and it plug welded to the floor, but whatever. But anyway, they did not roll any beads in it. So after all the heat and everything gets in it from being welded, with it being paper thin, you end up with an oil canning effect. When you push on it, it goes thunk, 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 thunk. So when you are at a stop sign or a stoplight with your idle down on your engine in an automatic, it's going to be sitting here vibrating and rattling, drive you insane. So I removed it, and I've got some thicker sheet metal here. I'm not sure what gauge that is yet. This was give to me. But anyway, I've got it drew out. I made a template and I drew it out, and I need to get it cut out, but I'm going to roll a bead in there, maybe two. It's pretty thick stuff. It probably really doesn't even need any beads in it, but I'm going to go ahead and at least put one down the center, and then I'm going to drill holes in it and plug weld it. So anyway, this piece over here I ended up cutting out. Now this was before we decided to change the chassis out because it was bent. The problem was the fill tube, the gas fill tube, when you put it in the car, it was setting on top of the chassis and lacked, I don't remember how much it was, a ½ inch or a full inch to go in the tank. So the frame rail's sticking up in the air. Also, the trunk floor was all bent up from a rear end collision. This car's been tapped in the back here. So this trunk floor is all tweaked out. So I'm assuming all this got replaced at one point before Steve bought the car, because when he got it, it was painted. It was just the clear coat coming off of it. But anyway, nobody ever did any repair to this trunk floor. They just left it. So when you go to try to bolt stuff in, you know, things are not going to fit too well because it's all bent out of shape. But you can see a big bubble right here. This is all bubbled up. So this is all bent. I've went in there and tried to shrink that with a shrinking hammer and a dolly, and it's really not wanting to move. So I think I'm just going to leave the hump. It's probably okay because right now it's pretty stout. But I ended up cutting this piece out because it was so beat up. All the beads were all twisted up and wrinkled up. Anyway, I think this area right here I further cut out because it has rusty areas in it. So I'm going to have to hand form a piece to go here. And then this is where your original gas tank mounts. There's supposed to be a plate like this one welded here, spot welded on, which I removed. So this one was severely bent up, but what they did is they went in and put some welds on here and then seam sealed it, or it actually feels like urethane, window urethane. But as you can see, there's a rust hole right there, and they just left it. And they raptor lined the bottom of the car, so that's some real quality work there. Anyway, this brace has got to come out of here, this little brace right here. This is supposed to have a square cutout in it, so your carriage bolt drops down from the top through this hole in this top plate. That's your gas tank mounting bolts. So, I've got the holes drilled out of this. I'm going to try to remove this, and then I'm going to have to cut this little area out right here and fab a new piece, butt weld it in there, grind both sides. Put these pieces back in there, plug weld those in place, but I'm going to have to do both sides. So I'm going to have to remove this plate to get access to this. Now I removed this plate and these two braces from the four-door parts car that we got the chassis from. These are really, really nice. And I got them all removed very well so they can go right back in. That way the gas tank can go back in the factory location. So there's quite a bit of work to do here. I'm assuming once I get this one cut out, there might be some rust in here I might have to repair, but I don't know yet. Old cars are a can of worms, so once you go in there, you're going to end up finding stuff. So when I was drilling out the spot welds, I've got areas here that you can see. Some of them went through, some of them didn't. So I'm going to have to go in here first thing, clean these areas up, and I'm going to have to plug weld these, or weld these up, and go back and grind both sides. Then I can put the plate on and put it on there. But a lot of work here, man, a lot of work. And then at that point, I've got to grind both sides, and then I got to go back in here and recoat the top, and then I'm going to have to Raptor line the bottom back here. So anyway, it's going to be a very, very labor-intensive job, actually. So they made new brackets that are crap welded underneath the body here that the gas tank would go to, and I've got to remove all that stuff. Also, the tank strap mounting brackets at the front of the body up here underneath, they were moved over, so I've got to remove those and put them back where they were. So there is a ton of work on this rear floor. It is going to take a lot of work to get this fixed, and it's probably going to take at least several days of work to do this before, you know, once everything's all recoated and finished out, then I can put the body on the chassis. But this is my obstacle right now. So alright guys, so I've been working on this little area right here, trying to fix it. Now I did go look online a while ago for trunk floor parts. You can actually buy a full trunk floor, but it's like $1,000 plus freight. You can buy a trunk floor in sections. I couldn't find a half. All I can find is thirds. A half would have been awesome, but I couldn't find one online. But anyway, you can buy a trunk floor section for these cars. You can buy a center, a left and right, but the center is only about that wide. So I don't, or a left section is only about that wide, so I don't have, I would need a center and this part. So I mean, for that kind of money, it's going to be better just to go in here and try to patch this up, I think. You know, I don't have a really high labor rate, so like most shops do, so you know, if I had over $100 an hour labor rate like most people, most definitely they would just put a whole trunk floor in here. That would be the proper repair, because it would get rid of a lot of sins in here. But anyway, I'm having to go in here and reform a lot of this stuff, because from the impact the car sustained from an accident damage sometime in its life, they just left this all bent up, wrinkled up, and beat up. So it's kind of turned into a mess. But I don't understand why, when you get under the car, this body was on a rotisserie, so I don't know why they didn't patch that. That's what you would have seen on the bottom of the car, is that spot right there. I don't know why that wasn't repaired. This is all metal, so this is packed full of all metal. It's very heavy, but just a lot of, you know, scab patch work. So anyway, I cut this piece out of here, and it's mainly because they welded the brace piece to this floor piece, and I can't get this separated to put the new braces in, and that part of the floor is rusty anyway, so I just cut all that out, formed this piece out of the same thickness as sheet metal, so it's going to get butt welded in here. I'll have to grind both sides, but anyway, I had to form this end here a little bit up to match this bead here, but it's just turned into a mess. I got a whole bunch of chicken poop welds here, and there's some right here. This, I don't really understand this. It's like it's 2 layers right here, I'm assuming, but the way it's made. So I thought about going in here and adding a little weld here and adding some weld right here, and then go back and grind it, and then I've got to build a patch right here, because the piece that I cut out is right here. If I remember right, I think all this was rusted out. So I've got to build a patch here, and the only thing I have for sheet metal tools is a bead roller, and I have really thin beads. I don't have anything big like this, and a sheet metal brake. So anything that I have to form that has all these, you know, intricate little curves and angles and channels and stuff, it's going to have to be done all by hand with hammer and dollies, and it's going to take a lot of time. So I think what I'm going to have to do is just pretty much put a patch in here, and then just build this up with weld here and here, and just go back in and just grind it all flat. I'll have to grind both sides, but it's just going to be a big job. But I found another point of interest here, and this may be why all these welds are right here in this one spot. There's actually a crack in the trunk floor right there. So that's going to need welded. And this part of the floor right here, like the size of a $50 here, looks like this is pushed up. So it's kind of tempting for me to go ahead and cut a piece out here and just try to hand form it over a piece of bar stock or something to get that curve. You know, it's just one of them deals where I'm trying to do the best job I can with what I have here, and it's very difficult to do, and then still on the other side try to save Steve some money. The best way would have been just replace his trunk floor, but it's just $1,000 is a lot of money, you know what I mean? So, for a part, I'll say. So, I guess that's pretty much it. I just got to build some patches. But that piece that was cut out of here, I thought I'd already hammer and dollied that, but I did not. It's still all beat up. So when I get it all cleaned up to clean metal, or clean enough metal, I should say, I'll video that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and work on this little spot here and figure out what I'm going to do. I'm afraid when I go in and try to weld that crack, it's just going to blow out. That's what I'm afraid of, because some of this is kind of pitted. But I don't know, maybe I ought to grind this out and just go in there and see what I got, I guess. What a mess. Alright, so this is the piece, the main piece cut out of the floor of Steve's car. See how beat that is? That thing is freaking mangled. So I'm going to have to try to reform all this with hammer and dollies to get it back remotely of where it needs to be, and it's going to be a lot of work. But anyway, it had Raptor liner on the bottom of it, and the chemical stripper that I'd put on it to soften it up, it pretty much removed it. I did have to apply it several times, but what's left underneath is like factory undercoat, and it's very difficult to remove. Usually you have to heat it up and pretty much cook it off there, but which I still may have to do. But what I actually used just to kind of get an idea of what I'm looking at here is knotted cut brush on the grinder. But yeah, this thing it is beat, man. I don't even know. I mean, this thing really needs a trunk floor, man. This is terrible. There is a raised area that's tapered here, and it's for the gas fill neck to go in through underneath. But anyway, that pretty much goes like that, and it's beat to crap. So I'm going to try the best I can to straighten it out and dolly it out, and you know, there's no way I'm going to be able to make it perfect, but I can get it to where it's a lot better. Because we definitely need clearance around the gas fill tube for sure. I don't want it beat up so bad that the gas fill tube's touching it, you know what I mean? So this piece here I ended up forming. I got to clean this up before I tack everything in, but this will pretty much go kind of like this. And I'm just pretty much going to have to fill a bunch of areas with weld and just grind both sides, but it'll be butt welded in, and when it's ground it should look like nothing was ever done. So that piece will go there. And then I got this piece here that goes here. So there's two separate little patches, and then I got to butt weld this back in, and I'll have to grind both sides. But this is my main holdup of why I can't put the body on the frame, because I'm going to need access underneath here to get to this. But I can't believe how beat this is. That's bad, man. That thing is rough. So going to be a lot of hammer and dolly work on that. So this piece here, I mean, it wasn't too bad to form by hand. I just, you know, you can pretty much do anything you want with metal with what you have. You know, you have things to put it on it and shape it to it and that type of stuff. You just kind of got to get a little bit more creative than having a shop full of metalworking stuff. But what I ended up doing was I took some steel pipe right here, or tubing, whatever you want to call it, and I pretty much set it on there. I drew a center line of where the center of that bead was, and I used vice grips on each end and clamped it down, and then I used my flat end hammer and started shaping it to get a curve in it. Then I reversed it and I put it out here, clamped it down with the vice grips on each end and hammered it, and that's how I got the curve like it needs to be. So there ended up being, I don't know what I did with the piece. Now that's it right there. So I ended up cutting a little bit more piece out of this, and the main reason is it has all this chicken poop welds in it, but there was a crack right down in there, but there's also another one right there. I don't know if you could see that. But, so it's split here, and it's split real bad down here, and that's probably why these welds are here, but they filled it full of all metal, it looks like, that gray stuff. It's really hard and heavy. That's what's underneath is what it looks like to me. But anyway, it's just going to take a lot of, you know, a little welding, a little grinding, and by the time this is done, and I clean this all up to bare metal after it's all put in, butt welded and both sides ground and then DA sanded, it should look really nice. It's not going to be perfect, but at least it'll be a lot straighter than what it was. But man, I got to tell you, I sure wish I had a trunk floor to put in here. It would be so much easier. And I would probably just put a center section in it and butt weld it all back in, but anyway, I'm just trying to use what I got here and try to save Steve a little money, because at the end of the day it's going to be, you know, over $1,000 for the piece, the trunk floor, plus freight, and then the time of me cutting everything out and cutting the new piece to fit and butt welding it all in and grinding again. So, you know what I mean? So this is probably going to end up being a little bit cheaper anyway and save him some money, and that's what I'm all about. But so I'm going to get to hammering Dollywood. All right, that was a good probably hour cleaning this thing up and hammering it all back out. I got it really nice. It's not perfect, but man, it took a lot of hammering, let me tell you. So now it's a little bit more stretched out, so I'm going to have to do a little grinding to fit it now, but it's kind of a good thing. Pretty much I'll end up butt welding it in there and get it all fit, but it looks really nice. This is the only part I'm not happy with, and somebody's went in here and welded a piece right in here, so they've got a lot of weld buildup and crap in there, and it's kind of tweaked out, but I think I'm just going to leave it. But this is all really nice and flat, and this is curved out back like it's supposed to be, but it'll end up working out. So I've got to scab in that, and this, and I weld up all these old holes, and then I got a lot of welding to do. But it is the end of the evening, so I've worked most of the day on this back here, but I'm pretty happy with it. That'll work. And then by the time this is all ground on both sides, and then DA sanded, and then primed, and then bed liner put back on underneath, and this is actually bed liner in here too. It's not very heavy, but it is bed liner. I think it's aerosol is what it is, because it has texture to it. So anyway, I'll probably just go back in here and redo this area of the trunk floor. But, you know, not trying to make it look perfect, but at least it looks nice, and it fits the car, and it doesn't, you know, when the trunk's up, it doesn't look like it took an impact at the rear, you know what I mean? But that'll work. That fill tube should fit real nice now with the new frame and the floor fixed right, but I did have to jack the floor up pretty good. But that's it. I'm done for the day. It's time for a shower and then some dinner, man. See y'all tomorrow.